Hello, my loves, and welcome back. Happy New Year if you are here with me live. Today, I am sharing the journey that I have been on since closing my dream business in Hawaii around 2023 and what I've been working on in the background, which has quite literally alchemized and transformed not only my life, but my perspective of what this path is really about, what we're actually reclaiming, and how important it is in order for us to cut through a lot of the spiritual fog and the noise happening in today's world. So I'm excited for today's episode, and let's get into it. So first and foremost, I do want to define what I mean by the feminine spiritual community. I've been using that term a little bit more often, and I think it's important that we be very clear about what's happening, not only in the feminine spiritual community, but just in the spiritual movement in general, because the noise is getting louder. And anytime things are going out into the masses, there's a lot of confusion. And integral, precise, diamond blade truth, quite honestly, is not always meant for the masses. Therefore, whether it's good intentions or not, a lot of what we're seeing in the spiritual movement is simply what you can identify as false light or uninitiated light, or people, even if they have incredible intentions, not really equipped to be speaking of and sharing the things that they are saying. So when I'm talking about the feminine spiritual community, this is the spaces and the quote unquote guides speaking about how flow or womb healing or feminine energy is a way to heal ourselves from a lot of the repercussions that we've had in our past with the patriarchal culture, and of course a lot of the generational trauma that many of us have been working on, perhaps maybe for even years. And of course, the ultimate goal around the feminine spiritual community is to express ourselves fully and divinely and be embodied and feel good and feel the power of our femininity and become fully embodied in that feminine force. Now, that is a lot. That's like a big bubble. The way that I see it right now, it's like, that's a huge bubble. Basically, anybody speaking on feminine energy would be a part of this. And this is why I'm speaking to you and why I've been quiet for the past few years, because I've had to untangle and kind of move through all of the layers that I was myself denying myself to see, because it is a lot of work to pull back the curtain and really ask for the veils to be lifted and see like what's actually happening here. Who are we really listening to, and what is their real life experience with what they're saying? So what's happening is that there are just far too many women coming out as supposed leaders without having any real initiation or integrated wisdom in their life. And they're leading a lot of women into many unintegrated concepts. And what this is causing is a lack of integrity in deep spiritual alchemical work. And of course, it's leaving the majority of women, and I know this for a fact, we'll talk about it today, the majority of women following this feminine spiritual movement are in poverty. They are in despair. They are in depletion. And I can say this because I myself had to live that. And of course, in the past few years, delve so deeply into what is actually happening. So this is why I'm here with you today, because no one in the feminine spiritual community is talking about the missing feminine ascension keys as a pivotal part of our completion towards an integrated, fully embodied, mature feminine. Now, I want to be super clear. I'm in no way stating that there is a completion point. But there is certainly a foundational completion that is built internally for every woman on this path, so that you are equipped to tread the path that is before you in a more stable, rooted, and more mature way. And there is a process to that. And there is a reclamation to that. And that's why whenever we're talking about spiritual teachings, there's always the exoteric and the esoteric, the information that is built to literally be replicated and shared with the masses. And then there is the information for those who are more genuinely adept and ready to be disciples of a deeper understanding of what spiritual light and spiritual alchemy is about. So I'm not saying that this is for everybody, but I can say that my heart has had this deep longing, and I've heard so many spiritual teachers talk about the longing that is in our hearts is that desire compass. So if you have a longing in your heart, you are called to be a disciple in some way, shape, or form. And you have to reclaim things that are not going to be available to the masses. So this is what I'm here with you today for, to talk about what is it that we're missing and why are we seeing this flop in the modern spiritual community. Many people now actually returning to religious institutions. I have a lot to say about that. There's a very practical reason for that, and I won't talk about it now. But what we're seeing is a very clear depiction of what happens when false light takes over and people just frazzle out. So let me paint the picture for you a little bit about how I reclaimed the keys and what led me to that point. So it was about 2020 that our life took us to Hawaii, my husband and I. And Hawaii is my soul home. She had a destiny to unfold there for me. I love that land always and forever, the motherland. And she, of course, gave me many initiations to work with. My entire spiritual path has really been with and around the land of Hawaii. So one of these initiatory gateways that she offered me, gifted me, opened up for me was being able to see the transparent truth about the spiritual community and also walk me through the process of reclaiming these missing feminine ascension codes. So at that time, we had just moved in 2020, right before COVID, which was incredible, the divine timing. I had been studying divine feminine wisdom and the ascension path simultaneously for many years, and I had just experienced a womb awakening. So with all of that, I was aware of the descension and the ascension maps of consciousness. I didn't have those words, but I had lived through those experiences, and I had gathered enough experience in my body and life to help other women understand and walk through that process. Now, to be clear, if that's something new to you, the descension and ascension maps of consciousness, like what the hell does that mean, Celeste? I really strongly suggest that you join the free Sophia Christ Initiate webinar. I explain all about it, and I will mention that a few times today because it is so important to understand, my ladies, that there is a map, and it is a very ancient map, and I've talked about this in the blog. This is nothing new. I have found nothing new. I'm simply remembering, right? From the very first day, I've just been remembering. And this is me remembering the full map of consciousness that we are meant to walk. But of course, it's not going to be printed on, the number one listing on Google for, feminine spirituality, because it's not meant for that kind of mass production. So fast forward to the year 2023. I was guided to close this dream business and temple space that we had built while living there. Now, mind you, this was a dream business that I had since I was a little girl. I grew up as a ballerina I lived my life in studios. And this was a women's fitness and wellness studio in Hawaii that really served as a hub for the feminine spiritual community, where we offered healing and ceremony and classes and trainings. And although, of course, the time of this business was incredibly fruitful and expansive to my journey in so many different ways, I will forever be grateful for it. I have to be honest that by the end of the business, the reality was very harsh. The mother does not play with me. So by the time that we closed that business, we were in the highest debt that I had ever been in my life. I was so depleted that I could barely stand on my own 2 feet. And that's not a metaphor. I literally physically was completely exhausted to the point that it was very hard for me to physically move from day to day. And my energy field had actually collapsed during that time of owning that space. And I had to learn the energetics, which I'm going to be talking about today. I had to learn the background of working with our actual energetic field, our light body, to hold immense amount of pressures. Of course, I had no idea what that meant at that time. But by the end of that business, my energy field had collapsed. I had no integrity, structural integrity around my energy field. Of course, I had lost connection to my body, my home, my desire force. I mean, I was not at zero. I was like at negative 1,000. And most astonishingly, I was in shock at how the community that I had built with so much love and investment and work and genuine labor showed its true colors. It was mind-blowing, and it really lifted a lot of the veils that are covering the spiritual community today. So I want to just fast forward, because this is honestly an episode about going from depletion to overflow, which is the reason why I've recovered these keys. So fast forward to today, January 2026. I really do have to say it was, of course, definitely all worth it. I am forever grateful for that experience. I am forever grateful for the mother to initiate me in that process, because I would have never had the courage to open my eyes to see what I had to see. So literally, I realized just recently that we have recently moved, and I've rebuilt this very same temple space without ever even trying. The amount of intimacy and heightened power that this temple space has been rebirthed without me even never affirming it, never, being in ritual with it, never visualizing. It just was birthed effortlessly. I have so much time for my home and my love, and I prioritize my health and my mind and my body. We have almost no debt, and I have so much extra time to spend with my family. And on top of that, I actually wake up in the morning without an alarm. This is something that I could have never, I definitely didn't have the courage to dream to this point. Neither could I have imagined it back then, because my life just felt like an avalanche every day running that business. And it was not just like being a small business entrepreneur. You have to understand that running a spiritual business is very different than running like a regular brick and mortar. So this is the reason why holding energy for healing work and ceremony was very, very initiatory for me. So just to be clear, this shift from depletion to overflow, it didn't just happen magically. I didn't just like rest for 3 years and relax and connect to my feminine energy and sit on the couch and then poof, right? I'm very much a person who is like, let's get into the practicals. Let's understand what's happening on the quantum realm. I want to understand why all of this happened and how it happens. So this was me, by the end of closing that business, making a very clear decision that the day that I closed my dream business in Hawaii, I would turn within and I will understand why things turned out the way they did. So I devoted myself to one mission. I devoted myself to coming back to the fullness of myself and understanding what the hell just happened. Because at that point, I had invested my life savings. I had put an infinite amount of good intentions into all of the services, all of the trainings. There was so much healing happening in that space. I mean, the ripples that we created I'm forever grateful for that. But I invested all of my lifelong knowledge and training on educating so many women. It was an incredible space for healing and awakening and expansion. And all of that led to an absolute devastation of my physical, spiritual, and personal life. And that does not follow any of the manifestation things that we hear about in the spiritual communities, right? It's like, if you're living your dream, that's it, right? It will come back at you 10 times fold. Well, that didn't happen because there was a bigger journey for me to explore. So, of course, just to bring a little light into this conversation, as soon as we moved and we closed down the business, the Sophia School of Feminine Initiatory Arts was seated within me. So I knew that there was a natural progression and something else that was coming in. And of course, it's taken me many years to develop the Book of Wisdom and the book of the work that we'll be developing inside the school. So I knew that there was another step, but it just didn't make sense to me. So I want to be clear about the harsh reality of the feminine spiritual movement. This is happening across the board to the majority of women that I work with on different levels. So I'm not just talking about spiritual entrepreneurs. I'm just talking about women in different spaces and places in their lives. And now that I've lived it and I'm literally on the other side of it, I can confidently say that it was the reclamation of these feminine ascension keys that has brought me to this point in my life. And it's not just like a 1, 2, 3, of course. That's not how the feminine works. It's not linear like that. But let's explore what that means. So, to be clear, up until opening my dream business in Hawaii, I had only lived through what is shared in a lot of, I wouldn't even say a lot, to be honest, some of this feminine spiritual movement, which is the understanding of womb awakening and integration of my healing gifts and understanding of our awakening process and, the simplicities of ascension. And of course, this is, like I mentioned, the descension and ascension maps of initiation that are now becoming a little bit more acceptable and talked about. Okay? But what I've come to realize is that this modern day feminine spiritual movement is deprived of what I'm calling true feminine power, which I had a whole workshop on. I thought it was going to be 2 hours. It ended up being like 16 hours on just the feminine power workshop and how we are being subconsciously and unknowingly stripped of the true feminine force that lies within us. And this is, of course, part of the feminine missing ascension keys. I have a soul path of reclaiming what true feminine power is and what the true feminine is here to do for this time of the great changeover and the new earth. And no, it's not just birthing a new earth through our intentions, okay? So what did I learn through reclaiming these feminine ascension keys? I want to be super clear that there would have been no amount of financial or business mentorship, because a lot of people are like, well, you just needed some business mentorship. You just needed a little bit more financial support. That is absolutely not true. Okay. Because I see these now that I have hindsight, of course, I can see when I work with women how it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how much business mentorship you have. It doesn't matter how many psychics you work with. Like, there is an internal infrastructure that needs to be built that cannot be skipped. And it can only be granted through the receptivity of these keys and through the living, experienced knowledge of living through these keys. So again, this is the reason why people are turning away from true spiritual work, because it takes time. You have to live through things and you have to be devoted. Oh, geez. Right? It's like, oh, God forbid we have to move through time and we have to be devoted and we have to be disciplined. Like nobody wants to talk about that in the spiritual community because everything should be easy in quantum, right? So if you're looking for easy in quantum, you can just go somewhere else. That's not what we're doing here. It's very clear that there is a complete lack of understanding around what the building of an internal infrastructure for an energetic body, like that conversation, those words don't even exist. And in this modern day spiritual movement. And so I really want to start helping create this internal infrastructure because it's exactly what's necessary in these years to come. And I've created a whole year-long curriculum on how we're going to do that this year. So now you're already thinking, of course, okay, Celeste, what are the missing feminine ascension keys? Can you get to the point? So, of course, like any good and wise, great mother, the feminine would never just hand them to me in a blog, right? It didn't just come through someone I heard on YouTube. I didn't just read it in a book. I had to live the process, and it took years. Now I am a 3-5. The whole point of my existence is for me to work through things and live through them and then give you the alchemized version, right? So I'm not saying it's going to take you years. I am saying you're going to have to live through some things, okay? So here's the best shot that I can give you and kind of giving you an understanding of what these feminine ascension keys are that we're missing in our modern day spiritual community. So first and foremost, how to maintain the integrity and strength of my energy field. And like I just mentioned, the inner structure, the pillar, the foundation of what would hold the alchemical process that I needed to walk through. And I want to be super clear because I was already practicing quantum energy healing. I was a practicing practitioner. I was a mentor. I was teaching quantum healing trainings. So this is not about learning how to work with your energy field or protecting your energy field. It has nothing to do with that. I want to be super clear. I was doing all of that. I was teaching all of that. This is about building the infrastructure like you would for any building. You have to first create the inner pillar, the foundational structure that's going to hold the amount of pressure that is going to come at you as you walk through the alchemy. Okay? I had to reclaim how to hold the energy, the projection, and expectation of large amounts of people seeking spiritual support. So perhaps maybe you are not a teacher, maybe you're not in the services of healing, maybe you are not a corporate executive that's running teams. So this may or may not pertain to you. But if you are dealing even with a generally larger community outside of you, it could be even up to like 5 people plus, okay? Learning how to hold, because you're not supposed to repel, just to observe and hold the energy that these people are bringing into your life is a process. Again, it is not just this notion of, oh, I'm just going to protect my field and hold off any energies coming my way. That is not how it works. I had to learn how to maintain and nourish my feminine magnetics as a source of regeneration and a source of life force. So feminine magnetics is something that's not talked about a lot. You can find it from here and there, but to be quite honest, there's no wisdom behind it. A lot of feminine magnetics really just talks about self-care and, okay, just take a shower, feel good, and then once you've lit up your body with your desire, poof, magnetics are turned on. Yeah, sorry, not that easy. Like, it doesn't work that way, okay? I used to have self-care. I used to have moments of I'm replenishing myself. But again, the amount of understanding that needs to be integrated to really endeavor into the process of building, strengthening, maintaining, and then expanding feminine magnetics. That is a process. We're going to be talking all about that inside the magician archetype, inside the Sophia school, because that, I believe, is literally one of the most important things missing in the feminine spiritual culture. The lack of understanding around magnetics and how it's just been watered down to, oh, just, eat some chocolate and do some self-care. It's just simply not like that. And there's women that are spending years doing self-care and eating chocolate and nothing is getting better. And I know them. I work with them. I used to be one of them. So this is why my 3-5 is like, stop doing that. We need to learn the things that were always practiced in feminine traditions. And I'm going to get into that. Okay. How to hold my heart strong. So my heart field, how to hold it strong under intense external pressures. And again, this is not just about being in service to large communities. This is about learning how to hold the pressure of alchemy, whether that is you being the nucleus of your own life, of your own family, of your own business, holding the heart field energetics strongly enough and connected to your womb so that you don't flop or frazzle under intense alchemy, intense initiation. Learning how to hold my feminine power without becoming hard, grudgeful, or even harsh towards others. And that's why I created the whole feminine power workshop, because I wasn't aware of feminine power before opening the business. I understood it, again, on the mainstream version, but not to the depth of what true feminine power is. And what happened was, of course, I became hard and grudgeful and started to become a little bit harsh towards people that I felt could not see all that I was doing already and still asking for more. But again, for you, for your path, holding and integrating feminine power in a embodied way, not in a way that is going to go above somebody. Or there's a lot of distortions around women reclaiming their power. And a lot of these distortions are leaving a lot of women, quite honestly, grudgeful and single in a way that it's like they're just mad. They're just mad. And they're allowing themselves to be mad, but that madness just doesn't go away. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's not integrated, and that's not what we want. We don't want to do that, because the medicine of the feminine is the alchemy, and is, yes, you're allowed to be enraged, but at some point you have to get to the other side. And then also reclaiming how to use sound, water, and breath and energy as real technology. I was already working with sound and energy a lot at that time, but nowhere near what I've reclaimed, the mysteries and the esoteric knowledge and the just real lived experience of working with the quantum aspects of our sound, of water, of breath, of energy is incredibly mind-blowing. And I'm so excited because I know it's going to eventually become a lot more common knowledge for many of the healers and practitioners out there. So using sound, water, breath, and energy as a continuous source of nourishment for my body and my spirit, not just as a way to heal others, but to work with it personally on a daily basis, but also in a very practical way, not having to sit and do sound healing or breath work for myself for half an hour every day. That's just not practical. Okay. So I know that was a lot, but this is just part of some of the feminine missing ascension keys that have literally shifted my life from complete depletion and debt and worry and lack to just the overflow that the mother is showing is possible. And this is what I genuinely desire for the women in my world, for the women who are ready to do the work of this internal alchemy that has always been done. See, here's the thing, that priestess lineages always had these feminine ascension keys. And this is why the last few years I've been also receiving and reclaiming a lot around the priestess lineages. And I will be creating a lineage workshop because the profound understanding and connection of these women and how they always knew how to hold all of this in an integral way and still keep their spiritual feminine power, it's in our lineage. It's about remembering and reclaiming that. So priestesses were not just healers or oracles. They were incredibly powerful and important to large organizations, to large establishments, to cities, to counties, to countries, to empires. They were incredibly important. And they dealt with economics and politics, which is so funny because that's exactly what I studied in college. And I always thought, like, why did I study that? Coming to realize that these women were not just in flow. They were not just psychic. They were not just spiritual, quote unquote, you know. There was a craft and a disciplined, structured art to who and what they were. They were highly trained in the quote unquote black arts or wisdom arts, and they were masters at frequency. They didn't just work with energy. They didn't just heal people. That was kind of like a repercussion of who they were. They were actual masters at frequency. They were trained to hold immense amount of pressure and social responsibility while being in their feminine nature. And they held the feminine ascension keys. And a lot of this information has been from reclaiming these priestess lineages at a soul level, which of course we're going to be doing in the Lineages workshop, which I'm really looking forward to. Now, if you're thinking like, okay, how does this apply to me? Like, I'm not a business owner. I don't want to work with a bunch of people. I don't even want to share my healing gifts. That's not the point. Because maybe you're a mother. Maybe you're a healer, like you're just a healing practitioner for yourself. Maybe you're just running your own business that has nothing to do with spirituality. Maybe you're in the corporate world and you go into work and you have people that you work around. It's not about the external environment. It's about you holding the nucleus of your life and running it like a tight ship, whether that be just for yourself or for a lot of people around you. So these are ascension codes, and feminine, I say feminine because they are embodied and they are something that we have to continuously come back to. It's a way of life. So if you've been part of this feminine spiritual movement and you have felt that something isn't integral, that something isn't adding up, that no matter how much healing work you do, there are certain things in your life that just continue to be the way they've always been. There's actual no transformation or alchemy that's rippling out into these places. And that can be with your wealth. That could be with your relationships. That could be with your ability to create a steady home environment within your body or within your physical home, within your body health and wealth, body wealth, within your sensuality or your expression, with the use of your life force and your creativity, or simply just showing up as the queen of your life. So if you are somehow stuck in the same loop, perhaps some things have changed, of course. I'm not saying nothing's working. I'm just saying there are foundational things that are missing in the external mass movement. And you can feel it. You can feel it if you are brutally honest with yourself. And I'm telling you, your intuition is right. You are spot on. So if this resonates for you, And this is calling you to maybe explore something that you can feel is missing, but you can't put a finger on it, because that's exactly where I was the day that I closed my dream business, or what I thought was my dream business in Hawaii. I have a few steps for you. So feel into the following and see what you want to start with. So you can start by simply taking the free Sophia Christ Initiate webinar, and I explain a lot more in depth about this map of feminine consciousness, some of the misunderstandings in the feminine spiritual community, and like what are the practical steps around what we're doing inside of the school. So I would strongly suggest to start there. It's a great first step. If you know that you are destined to understand, work with for yourself, or maybe even for others, the quantum technologies, so what the priestesses were very aware of and practicing in terms of sound and breath and water and energy, I invite you to join me inside Divine AI. It's a year-long curriculum, and we're going to be working with these quantum technologies. We're going to start with the quantum mysteries and lineages of sound and water, what the mystery schools have always known and been teaching, and we're going to start to implement it into our lives. We're going to be working with the voice, our sound current. We'll be working with how to use quantum energy for yourself, and also if you want to build a healing business, great, you can do that too. But really my focus is I want to get you in alignment to what you will be sharing with others first. So quantum energy healing training level 1 is included. And also we're going to be working on building the light body in a practical way, in a way that you have a resource and tools to work with, so that when things get crazy or things get intense or things get tough, you know what to do. You're not just collapsing like my energy field did without having a resource. So Divine AI is really, really exciting. I'm really looking forward to this year-long exploration. I am hosting a intro workshop to Divine AI in New York City. So if you are in New York City this January, I strongly recommend you join me. It's going to be amazing. I have all the links below as well. And you can always work with me one-on-one if you're like, okay, I need to do this now. Like, I don't want to wait. I don't want to go through all of the work. Like, I need to start working with this. I invite you to work with me one-on-one, and that is also an option. Lastly, the magician archetype, that is not launched, but it is coming, and I think it's going to come sooner than later, because it really feels like, for me, it was the all-determining before and after aspect of this process, like really receiving this information and then living it in through my own body. That, along with Divine AI, like if those two things were handed to me at that time, forget it. I would have, that's it, right? I wouldn't have received the 35 medicine. But here I am living through the whole process to give it to you. So again, the most powerful way to really receive these Feminine Ascension keys is to join me inside Divine AI, or to just wait for the magician archetype to come out, or work with me one-on-one. Okay? I hope this was as helpful to you as it has been for me. It's been very eye-opening to see beyond a lot of the veils and the misperceptions of what's happening, but also it's really exciting to start working with you ladies on a deeper level and start to kind of get past all of the sparkles and glitter and performance, and just kind of get into the really nitty-gritty of what we need to do in these next few years. So until next time, I'm sending you so much love and aloha. Mwah.